Hello and welcome back to all my favourite procrastinators, beginners, artists, whoever you are. If you're joining me on this video, hello. I hope you had a wonderful Christmas and Happy New Year. Welcome to 2021. Let's see what we're going to achieve in this year, because in this video I really want to talk about my goals for the year, and I'm also going to be giving you some tips on using gouache. I haven't used gouache for a couple of months now, so it was really nice doing this project and getting back into the rhythm of using this kind of paint. I have done another video using gouache before in much more detailed for beginners on perhaps things you can address or avoid. So if you want to watch that video, it's perhaps a bit more explanatory. I'm going to be including a link which should be on the screen now. So if you're interested, click on the link and you can watch that video instead. I'm also going to be giving you a teeny tiny brief studio tour. It's going to be brief because it's a corner of one room, so it's not very big, but I'm really proud of it and I'd love to share it with everyone. If you're interested in what kind of equipment I'm using, I'm going to be using a combination of gouache. I did actually sort of inherit some more gouache just before Christmas, around my birthday in November, and they're quite old brands. I will be listing all of the equipment that I use in the description below, so if you're not sure, perhaps, I don't know, I mispronounced something or whatever, you can always just check back there and it will all be written down. But the main gouache that I will be using is Reeves gouache, which again I talk about in that previous video. It's not very expensive. It was one of the cheaper brands. I am, however, going to be using that on Arch's watercolour paper, which is one of the more expensive paper brands. I personally think when you're painting that having a better paper is perhaps better than having higher quality paints. I think it's a bit more disheartening when the paper starts to buckle and warp and your colours aren't very well represented, and I think it's generally just better to have a better quality paper. And I'm not made of money, so things like that are useful for me to remember and think about. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to my channel. Post lots of videos like this, giving you hopefully some advice and also encouraging everyone to just partake in doing a little bit of art if you haven't already. I have been on this journey for a little over a year now, since I was at school. So I'm fairly new. So maybe you're like me and you're just interested and you haven't done it for a long time. And maybe you want to learn and we can all learn together. And that's what this channel is all about. Now, like I said in my previous video, I did dish out some advice for gouache. I'm only going to be adding a little bit more to that because I learned a couple of different things while I was doing this painting. I'd only ever done one proper landscape before, so it was really nice for me to just kind of do something far away in the distance, and it wasn't an animal, and it wasn't... I think when you're doing landscapes, you're a bit more free with your brush strokes. And I often get commented on, oh, you're such a neat artist and you're very controlled. And I know that they mean it as a compliment, but also I'm kind of like, drat. Because for me, like, the best kind of art isn't perfect and it isn't too neat. So I'm really trying hard to break that habit. I think you have to strike a balance between something that isn't completely messy, so it reads well to the viewer, but also something that doesn't feel mechanical, for want of a better word. So it was really nice for me to do landscapes because I always feel a bit freer doing landscapes. And one of my top tips is always try and use a different brush from the one that you're most comfortable with. I tend to use round tip brushes, and they're really good for lots of paintings, but for gouache I like to use flat tip brushes. I don't know why, I just think you get a broader range of textures, and I think it serves better for this kind of picture, particularly landscapes with the angular forms. I also found with the round tip brush that when I was using it to stroke the gouache, it was actually dragging up paint from the bottom layer a lot more easier than the flat tip brush. Perhaps, I don't know, maybe that's because it's more pointed, probably, but that's what I was finding, which wasn't useful because then I was losing the intensity of the color that I was actually trying to apply. I said in my previous video that the lighter colors will dry darker. So your colors will dry darker. And that is true, but I'm going to make a slight addition to that advice. Your light colors will dry darker, but your dark colors will dry lighter. So just bear that in mind when you're mixing your paints. On the plate with gouache or whatever you're using, palette, gouache is a bit weird in that when you mix it and it's fresh and it hasn't dried, it is a slightly different color. So maybe just bear that in mind. If you want a really intense color and a really dark color, choose the darker paint than the lighter one. Because I had to go back and forth a couple of times to get the color that I actually sort of wanted. At the beginning of this picture, you can see I was trying to block out my colors with very light colors at the start, just trying to kind of block out the shapes. I don't like to draw or anything when I'm doing this kind of painting because I think it kind of prevents me from having that freeness and looseness. So I wouldn't recommend necessarily sketching out what you'd like to do beforehand. So here is a sneak peek at my studio, which isn't really a studio, it's an office, but I'm so proud of it. So I got most of this stuff from, I'm not gonna lie, it was IKEA, but I'm so proud particularly of this shelf because I could not lay my art papers flat for ages. And now I finally have somewhere to rest them flat. And I've decorated it with all my favorite things from lots of my favorite artists. The painting I showed at the start was a painting that I got from Lightbox Expo, which was sort of like an online event for artists, and it was so much fun. It was basically constant workshops and streams from various different artists over the weekend, and it was great. And that particular painting was done by Bobby Chu, who does Schoolism, which you can find on YouTube. And it is it's a treasure trove of knowledge. So if you're looking to learn more, and particularly if you're into digital art, definitely go and check out his channel. I'll be writing his name in the description because you obviously can't see how I would spell it. But yeah, you can read it in the description. I also have two of my favorite books from Minnie Small, who is one of my biggest inspirations for gouache, and also from Loish. I have a book from her. Another inspiration that I have for gouache is a man called Justin Donaldson. If you have not heard of Minnie Small and Justin Donaldson and you're interested in gouache, definitely go and have a look at their paintings because you can never have too much inspiration, and they are definitely worth checking out. Another tip for gouache that I personally prefer, pre-mix your colors if you want to blend. In my last video, I said that blending is very difficult, and that's true, and it's mostly because that it dries so quickly. So I was finding it really, really hard to blend, and I was finding it tricky on this one because, especially with that water, I'm really not used to painting water. I haven't really done it a lot, if at all. So I found it really hard because there was a real particular kind of effect that I wanted to achieve, and that involved blending, and I've always struggled with that with gouache. So the best advice I can give for that is having your colors there just so you can literally go dab, and you don't have to pause to mix your colors. It's already there, it's good to go, and you can just whack it on the board. Another tip is that I like to use smooth paper instead of the rippled paper. I'm gonna get them mixed up now, but I think it's hot pressed that I use. So the smoother one, basically, because gouache dries so quickly, and if you have too much of it, it gets a bit clayey and kind of builds. I just don't want the extra addition of having rippled paper as another obstacle for spreading the paint. So I prefer to use smooth paper. I feel like I'm getting kind of close, but still not quite there with the whole yeah. I know the colours are a bit sort of I'm still working. So my goals for this year are, I'm definitely going to be doing more videos because I kind of slacked at the end a little bit there last year. But I think I have a better idea of what kind of content I want to make. I really want to push my shop a little bit more and produce more collections. But I think the focus for these videos is very much going to be, again, kind of study things. So the next sort of video that I'd like to put together is perhaps gouache, but with a portrait. I haven't used gouache for a person yet, and I'm really interested to see how much I can mess that up. So hopefully you'll join me back here to see that spectacular, wonderful mess that I'm intending to make. I really hoped you liked this picture. I was so happy with the end result. It's actually a present for my grandparents, so I really hope they're gonna like it. It will be a set of 3, but I'm just showing you one here. And I was really, really happy with it. I hope you will like it too. Let me know in the comments if you think you know where I might have painted from. It is somewhere in the UK, so you can all throw guesses if you like. Hopefully you'll join me on the next video, and I really look forward to seeing you there. Bye everyone!